Dr. Emily Carter had spent her entire life chasing legends as an archaeologist specializing in ancient Egypt. She had unearthed countless artifacts, but her latest mission promised to be the most extraordinary yet. Rumors had been circulating about a hidden tomb in the Valley of the Kings, one untouched by looters or time. Emily's team consisted of her trusted assistant, Michael, a brilliant yet brooding Egyptologist named Dr. Hassan El-Sayed, and Sarah, an enthusiastic student from Oxford. Together, they had secured funding and permission from the Egyptian government to explore the site. "Are you sure about this?" Michael asked as they stood at the entrance of a narrow passage, half buried in sand. The scorching sun beat down on them, but Emily's excitement was palpable. "We've come too far to turn back now," Emily replied, her eyes gleaming. "This could be the discovery of a lifetime." Dr. Hassan nodded in agreement. "If the legends are true, this tomb belongs to Pharaoh Akhenaten, the heretic king. Finding his burial site could rewrite history." They entered the passage, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The air grew cooler as they descended, the walls adorned with hieroglyphics telling tales of gods and kings. Sarah carefully documented their findings, her hands trembling with excitement. Hours passed as they navigated the labyrinthine corridors. At last, they reached a massive stone door, inscribed with a curse warning intruders of a fate worse than death. Emily's heart raced as she deciphered the ancient text. "Beware all who enter, disturb not the eternal rest of Pharaoh Akhenaten, lest his wrath be unleashed upon the living." Michael gulped. "Do you think we should proceed?" Emily hesitated, the weight of the curse heavy on her mind. But the promise of discovery was too great. "We have to," she said finally for science. With great effort, they pried the door open, revealing a vast chamber filled with treasures beyond their wildest dreams. Gold and jewels sparkled in the flashlight beams, but the centerpiece was a sarcophagus, intricately carved and adorned with precious stones. Dr. Hassan approached it reverently. "This is it, the final resting place of Akhenaten." As they prepared to open the sarcophagus, a sense of unease settled over the team. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She dismissed it as nerves, focusing on the task at hand. The lid of the sarcophagus slid open, revealing the mummified remains of the pharaoh. An eerie silence filled the chamber as they stared at the ancient figure, his face contorted in a final grimace. That night, the team set up camp near the entrance of the tomb. Exhausted but exhilarated, they celebrated their discovery. As the desert winds howled outside, Emily found herself unable to sleep. She wandered the camp, her thoughts returning to the curse. A sudden noise drew her attention. She turned to see Michael, his face pale. "Emily, you need to see this," he whispered. He led her back to the tomb. Inside, they found Dr. Hassan staring at the open sarcophagus, a look of horror on his face. "The mummy is gone." Emily's blood ran cold. "What do you mean, gone?" "The remains, they vanished," Hassan replied, his voice shaking. "This isn't possible." Before they could process what was happening, a chilling wail echoed through the tomb. They turned to see a shadowy figure emerging from the darkness, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "It's the curse," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "We've awakened the pharaoh." Panic set in as the team tried to escape the tomb, but the shadowy figure pursued them relentlessly. The walls seemed to close in, the air thick with an oppressive presence. They stumbled through the corridors, desperate to find a way out. As they reached the entrance, Emily felt a cold hand grasp her shoulder. She turned to see the ghostly figure of Akhenaten, his face twisted in rage. "You have disturbed my rest," he hissed. "Now you will suffer." The ground beneath them shook, and the walls began to crumble. They barely made it out before the entrance collapsed, trapping the pharaoh's wrath inside. Breathless and shaken, they returned to their camp. "We need to leave," Michael said urgently, "now." But as they gathered their belongings, strange things began to happen. The air grew cold and whispers filled the night. Emily saw shadows moving out of the corner of her eye, always just beyond her reach. Dr. Hassan tried to reassure them. "It's just our minds playing tricks on us. The curse isn't real." But Emily knew better. She could feel the pharaoh's presence, his anger and sorrow mingling with her own fear. They had violated a sacred tomb, and now they were paying the price. Days turned into a blur as they journeyed back to civilization. The haunting followed them, an ever-present reminder of their transgression. Sarah fell ill, her body wasting away despite their best efforts to help her. "She won't make it," Dr. Hassan said grimly. "The curse is real, Emily. We need to find a way to appease the pharaoh." Desperation drove them to seek out an old Bedouin shaman rumored to possess ancient knowledge. He listened to their story, his eyes filled with sorrow. "You have angered a powerful spirit," he said. "To lift the curse, you must return what you have taken and perform a ritual of atonement." Emily's heart sank. The treasures they had taken from the tomb were already on their way to the museum. "We can't get them back," she said, despair in her voice. "Then you must make a greater sacrifice," the shaman replied. "A life for a life, only then will the pharaoh's wrath be appeased." Emily couldn't accept the shaman's words. She refused to believe that a life had to be taken to lift the curse. But as Sarah's condition worsened, she began to lose hope. One night, as she kept vigil by Sarah's bedside, the ghostly figure of Akhenaten appeared before her. "You have taken what was mine," he said, his voice echoing with centuries of sorrow. "Now you must give something in return." Emily felt a cold dread settle over her. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice trembling. "A soul," the pharaoh replied. "Only then will I be at peace." Tears filled Emily's eyes as she looked at Sarah, her friend and student. She couldn't let her die. "Take me," she said, her voice breaking. "Take my life instead." Akhenaten's gaze softened, and for a moment she saw the man behind the curse. "You are brave," he said, "but the choice is not yours to make." As he disappeared, Emily felt a renewed determination. She couldn't let Sarah die, but she also couldn't allow the curse to continue. She had to find another way. In a final, desperate attempt, Emily led the team back to the tomb. They navigated the collapsed entrance and ventured deep into the darkness, carrying the remaining artifacts they had taken. "We have to put everything back," Emily said, her voice echoing in the chamber. "Maybe that will be enough." As they returned the treasures to their rightful place, the air grew still. The oppressive presence lifted, and for a moment Emily felt a glimmer of hope. But then the ground shook, and the ghostly figure of Akhenaten appeared once more. "It is not enough," he said, his voice filled with anguish. "A life must be given." Emily's heart sank. She had failed, but as she prepared to face her fate, Sarah stepped forward. "I'll do it," she said weakly. "I'll give my life." No, Emily cried, But Sarah shook her head. "It's the only way," she said. "I'm already dying. Let my death mean something." With tears streaming down her face, Emily watched as Sarah approached the pharaoh. He reached out, and as their hands touched, a blinding light filled the chamber. When the light faded, Sarah was gone, and the ghostly figure of Akhenaten had vanished. The air was still, and the curse was lifted. The team returned to civilization, forever changed by their experience. Sarah's sacrifice weighed heavily on their hearts, but they knew she had saved them all. Emily dedicated her life to preserving the history and culture of ancient Egypt, ensuring that the mistakes of the past were never repeated. She never forgot Sarah or the lesson they had learned in the depths of the tomb. Years later, as she stood before a new group of students, she told them the story of the curse and the Pharaoh's wrath. "Respect the past," she said, "and remember that every discovery comes with a price." And as she looked out at their eager faces, she knew that Sarah's sacrifice had not been in vain. The curse had been lifted, and the memory of the Pharaoh's wrath would live on as a cautionary tale for generations to come. The quaint village of Eldenbrook nestled between rolling hills and dense, ancient forests was a place where time seemed to stand still. Cobblestone streets wound through clusters of thatched-roof cottages, and the scent of fresh bread wafted from the local bakery every morning. But behind its picturesque facade, Eldenbrook harbored a chilling secret that few dared to speak of. Elena Harper, a young woman with a heart full of curiosity and a mind brimming with stories, had just moved to Eldenbrook, seeking solace after the tragic loss of her parents. She found the village's tranquility appealing. She rented a charming old cottage on the edge of the forest, unaware of the sinister history it carried. Her first night in the cottage was restless. The wind howled through the trees, whispering secrets that seemed to echo in her ears. The old wooden floors creaked under her footsteps, and shadows danced on the walls as the fire flickered in the hearth. Despite the eerie atmosphere, Elena felt a strange connection to the place, as if it was calling out to her. The villagers were kind but distant, their eyes often clouded with worrying. They spoke in hushed tones about the forest and the spirits that were said to dwell within. Children were warned never to venture too far into the woods, and old folk spun tales of lost souls and restless spirits. One evening, while exploring the attic of her new home, Elena stumbled upon an old, dusty journal. Its pages were yellowed with age, and the ink had faded, but the words were still legible. The journal belonged to a woman named Isabella, who had lived in the cottage over a century ago. Intrigued, Elena began to read. May 3rd, 1872. The forest calls to me. Each night I hear the whispers, soft and mournful. I fear I am losing my mind, but something compels me to listen. The villagers say the spirits are restless, that they seek something, someone. I am terrified, but I must know the truth. May 10th, 1872. I saw her today, a girl in a white dress, her face pale and eyes hollow. She stood at the edge of the forest, beckoning me. I dared not approach, but her image haunts me. Who's she? What does she want? May 15th, 1872. I can no longer ignore the whispers. They grow louder each night, pulling me towards the forest. I must go. I must understand. Elena shivered as she read the final entry. Who was the girl Isabella had seen, and what had happened to her? Determined to uncover the truth, Elena decided to explore the forest herself, despite the warnings. The next morning, she set out early, the sun casting long shadows through the trees. The forest was dense with towering oaks and thick underbrush. As she ventured deeper, the air grew colder, and an eerie silence enveloped her. The only sound was the crunch of leaves under her boots. Hours passed, and just as Elena was about to turn back, she saw at a clearing with a single ancient oak tree in the center. Beneath it stood a girl in a white dress, just as Isabella had described. Elena's heart raced as she approached. "Hello," Elena called out, her voice trembling. The girl turned slowly, her eyes empty and sorrowful. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Who are you?" Elena asked, stepping closer. "My name is Lily," the girl replied. "I am lost. I cannot find my way home." Elena's heart ached for the girl. "How can I help you, Lily?" "Find the locket," Lily said. "It holds the key to my freedom." Before Elena could ask more, Lily vanished, leaving behind only a lingering chill. Determined to help the lost spirit, Elena returned to the cottage and scoured every inch for the locket. Days turned into weeks, and just as she began to lose hope, she found it hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the attic. The locket was old and tarnished, with an intricate design etched into its surface. Inside was a small, faded photograph of a young girl who looked remarkably like Lily. With the locket in hand, Elena returned to the clearing. "Lily, I found it," Elena called out. The girl appeared once more, her eyes filling with hope. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have set me free." As Lily faded away, a sense of peace washed over Elena, but as she turned to leave, she felt a cold hand on her shoulder. Whirling around, she saw Isabella, her eyes wide with fear. "You must leave this place," Isabella warned. "The spirits are not all kind. Some seek revenge." Elena's heart pounded in her chest. "What do you mean?" "Long ago, terrible things happened here," Isabella explained. "The spirits of those wronged linger, their anger growing with each passing year. You have awakened them." The ground beneath Elena's feet began to tremble, and ghostly figures emerged from the shadows. Desperate to escape, she ran, the forest closing in around her. The whispers grew louder, more menacing, and cold fingers brushed against her skin. As she stumbled through the underbrush, Elena saw a light ahead. She pushed forward, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Bursting into the clearing, she saw the village beyond. The spirit's cries echoed in her ears as she crossed the threshold, collapsing on the cobblestone street. The villagers rushed to her side, their faces etched with concern. "You went into the forest, didn't you?" an old woman asked, her voice trembling. Elena nodded, too exhausted to speak. The villagers exchanged worried glances, and the old woman knelt beside her. "We must perform the ritual," she said, "to appease the spirits and protect our village." That night the villagers gathered in the clearing, chanting ancient incantations and lighting candles. The air grew thick with energy, and the spirit's cries gradually faded. Elena watched from the edge of the circle, her heart heavy with the weight of what she had unleashed. As the final chant echoed through the forest, a sense of calm settled over the clearing. The spirits were at peace for now. But Elena knew the darkness still lingered, waiting for another unsuspecting soul to awaken it. In the days that followed, Elena continued to explore Eldenbrook, uncovering more of its hidden history. She learned of the tragedies that had befallen the village centuries ago, cruel betrayals, unjust deaths, and the sorrow of lost souls. The more she discovered, the more she understood the importance of respecting the spirits and the land they haunted. Elena's experiences in Eldenbrook changed her. She found solace in the village's quiet beauty and formed bonds with its people who had once seemed so distant. Together they honored the memories of those who had come before, ensuring their stories were never forgotten. Years passed, and Elena became a beloved member of the community. She wrote a book about her experiences, sharing the tales of the spirits and the lessons she had learned. Her words resonated with many, drawing visitors from far and wide who sought to understand the mysteries of Eldenbrook. The village flourished, its dark past no longer a burden but a reminder of resilience and unity. And though the whispers in the woods never fully ceased, they were no longer cries of anguish, but gentle reminders of the connection between the living and the dead. Elena often visited the ancient oak tree in the clearing, leaving flowers for Lily and the other spirits who had touched her life. She had found peace in Eldenbrook, knowing she had helped bring light to its darkest corners. And as she stood beneath the canopy of leaves, she felt a sense of belonging, as if she were part of a story much larger than herself. In the end, the whispers in the woods became a comforting melody, a testament to the enduring power of love and remembrance. And Elena Harbor, once a stranger seeking solace, became the guardian of Eldenbrook's secrets, ensuring the spirits' voices were never silenced again.